You're listening to Myers-Briggs Question Corner with Edythe Richards.
Today's question is from Valerie. I'm an ENTJ and my office manager is an ESFP. We have different ways of communicating and it's frustrating. What tips do you have that can help us reach common ground? Let me begin with the term communicating. When people mention communication skills, they could be referring to anything: speaking more than listening, interrupting, saying no, coming across as impatient or disinterested, criticizing others, or even poor writing or poor presentation skills. In a situation like the one Valerie is describing, I'd first like to recommend that all parties clarify what they mean by poor communication or a lack of communication. This will help in better identifying and addressing the issues that are causing the distress at work. I'm first going to describe the preferred communication and work styles for ENTJs and ESFPs, discuss potential pitfalls for these two Myers-Briggs types when working together, and finish with suggestions both can implement in order to foster a more productive and less stressful work relationship. Let's start with ENTJs. As a rule, ENTJs place a huge amount of stock in logic and very little stock in people's emotions, and this is especially true at work. In their minds, work is work, and people shouldn't take criticisms that are meant to help as a personal affront. They aren't afraid to confront, argue, or engage with others in order to learn or in order to get a job done. ENTJs assume they are right and need to be proven wrong. They may therefore appear arrogant, as they don't necessarily care about consensus or other people's opinions. In all fairness, they're probably completely unaware of this arrogance. In terms of relating to other people, ENTJs talk a lot about subjects that interest them, but they may be silent on topics they find boring, and that usually includes small talk or superficial conversation. In conversations, they may be blunt. This isn't intended to be rude or mean, but just so that the ENTJ can understand the point more quickly and efficiently. ENTJs are goal-oriented and won't waste time on trivial matters that don't pertain to their goals. As a result, they tend to move to the top of any organization or team and are natural leaders, and they'll be at their best when they're leading. They may come across as bossy or domineering. In reality, though, they're not so interested in bossing people around for the sake of bossing them around, but as a way of becoming a master and commander of everything. This master and commander mentality is especially evident when there's chaos in the office, real or perceived chaos. It's the ENTJ's nature to initiate the problem-solving process and execute the best decisions. In their mind, it's a matter of improving systems or people for the greater good. However, this may conflict with other people's views. Moving on to ESFPs. In many ways, ESFPs are the polar opposite of ENTJs. ESFPs are going to be at their best in work environments that are hands-on, fun, and laid back. They're spontaneous, friendly people, and they'll naturally be attuned to all the social activities and the people they're working with. ESFPs tend to have outstanding social skills and love to entertain others with their humor, their sense of optimism, and making each person feel special. They won't do well in a very quiet, serious environment or in overly structured, theoretical, and formal workplaces. ESFPs are tactile, spur-of-the-moment people, great at troubleshooting and problem-solving in the moment. Because they are people-centric, they're service-oriented and will most likely have an immediate, positive impact on any team. As a result, they can be the catalyst for action and cutting through red tape, maintaining group morale, and spreading their enthusiasm on to others. They're not long-term strategic planners, but fun-loving doers who crave adventure and often the spotlight, and are extremely resourceful, show empathy in whatever they do. They're storytellers, talking to people about people, and this quality, along with parties, new ideas, new fashions, new gadgets, they'll bring all of this to any work environment. With two types who are so different, there are bound to be challenges, especially at work. The two big ones that come to mind are, first, different ways of expression, impersonal versus personal, and second, different needs for control and closure. Let's talk about expression first. ESFPs have a strong need for harmony and tend to be sensitive. They're not going to be able to work well if there's disharmony in the office or on the team. They're going to be very stressed by conflict and criticism, whether real or perceived. ENTJs, by contrast, are very driven people and expect the same drive from others. They may be frustrated by the very things the ESFP needs. If the ESFP doesn't stand up for him or herself, or doesn't explain their thoughts in a way the ENTJ can understand, this may cause the ENTJ to dismiss them or overreact, causing further problems. Remember that ENTJs are detached and logical at work. Work is work and not meant for personal feelings, superficial conversations, or idle chit-chat. ESFPs need social interactions, and they tend to be loose about the boundaries between their personal and professional lives. The fact is that the ESFP is going to be more productive and efficient when they're able to have good relationships and friendly conversations with their coworkers. And this is hard for ENTJs to understand. The second potential pitfall, different needs for control and closure, may be just as problematic. ESFPs have a naturally casual attitude, live in the present moment without much regard for the future, and need the freedom to respond spontaneously to events as they occur throughout the day. They also don't mind surprises. They're curious people, and they may come across as indecisive because they need a lot of information before making a decision. As a result, they may feel like they're being controlled or rushed by an ENTJ. And for someone who values freedom, this really isn't a good thing. ENTJs, on the other hand, are super decisive people and get easily frustrated by loose ends. They are take-charge, orderly people, and if the ESFP has a lot of clutter or disorganization around the office or isn't planful in their interactions or meetings, this will be very unnerving for the ENTJ. ENTJs also have a very strong work ethic, and they're not going to spend time on social interactions that they consider frivolous and a waste of time. Work first and play later is their motto, and they expect this from everyone. ESFPs will most likely consider this attitude way too demanding, controlling, and just unrealistic. Now, for the tips to work together effectively. I'm going to start with the ENTJ. Valerie and other ENTJs tuning in, here are 3 tips to remember when working with ESFP types. First, resist the urge to point out problem areas, criticize, or fix things straight away. You'll get much more out of an ESFP if you start your interactions with friendliness. Hi, Susan. How was your weekend? How was that party you were talking about last week? How's your mom doing? Show a genuine interest in something personal that they mentioned. Regardless of how much time you think you're wasting on this, or however unnecessary you think this is, believe me, this will save you time in the long run, and you'll win huge points with your ESFP coworker. Just make sure you're genuine and sincere. If it's not possible to be sincere, don't fake it. This will just make things worse. Second, try to appreciate the good points in the ESFP you work with. Most likely, they make the work environment fun and more relaxed and overall pleasant for everyone. Verbally articulate this if you can. If you have to make a criticism, sandwich it between 2 positive statements. For example, I really appreciated you getting me that report so quickly. Next time, would you be sure to reread it for typos and mistakes? I know you're usually good at catching those, and I have a big presentation tomorrow, so I need you to pay close attention to today's report. Thanks so much. Third, when the ESFP is talking, try to pay close attention, as this is most likely his or her way of trying to make a connection with you. And they'll need that connection in order to do their best work. If the ESFP suggests something fun, like an office lunch or happy hour, Try it out if you're able and if it's appropriate. You'll most likely surprise them and perhaps even win them over by doing this. ESFPs, here are some tips for you when working with an ENTJ. First, keep your promises and don't be late. Time and structure are very important to ENTJs. They're not going to be at their best if you're always changing plans or if they can't trust you to get work to them on time. If you're unable to make a deadline, give them as much warning as possible and don't make excuses. Just give it to them straight. Second, in your interactions, keep it professional. Be clear, direct, and logical with your communication. Remember that ENTJs don't care so much about being friendly, but they do care about being competent. If they come across as mean or arrogant, do your best to ignore it and not overreact. Emotional outbursts, however small, are going to frustrate an ENTJ. It's important for you not to take this personally. Third, ask for their advice and respect what they say. You may actually be surprised by the depths of their knowledge, and what they have to share with you might actually help you in your professional or personal life and journey. To sum it up, ENTJs and ESFPs have very different work styles and are attuned to very different things, so there are sure to be challenges when these two are paired together. However, every challenge presents an opportunity to learn and grow. ENTJs and ESFPs can actually help each other out at work too. ENTJs can learn a softer, more human approach from ESFP's warmth, generosity, fun-loving nature, and overall zest for life. This can help ENTJs slow down and become more aware of their feelings and how their overly formal, perhaps domineering style may negatively impact the team. ENTJs can help their ESFP coworkers to become more assertive and articulate, more organized and productive, and get them to see the relation to the big picture instead of getting lost in the weeds. ENTJs and ESFPs can work wonderfully together if they are both willing to make the time and effort to do so. I'm going to end with a phrase I've used before and I think is so important in this case. People tend to communicate in the way they want to be communicated with. Valerie, thanks so much for writing in with your question.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear more, or you'd like to submit a question yourself, then you can find us at www.atopcareer.com. Until next time. MBTI and Myers-Briggs are registered trademarks of the MBTI Trust.